Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to another anthology recommendation here. Now, as I have covered previously in my videos for Creepshow 1 and 2, Tales from the Dark Side, the movie, as well as Trick or Treat, I love anthologies, and not just films. I also like shows as well, such as American Horror Stories, the Creepshow Show, and Room 104, just to name a few of them. I love them because they can take a really big swing to try something new that we haven't seen before, whether it's for an episode of a show or a segment within a film. Sometimes you get something really cool out of it. Sometimes you get something really weird and awful, but worth talking about with whatever they were trying. But I love the idea of mixing things up, giving us something worth checking out. And for this entry, I wanted to talk about the latest entry in the VHS franchise, which is for VHS Beyond, which was released not too long ago, I believe early October. And for those unfamiliar, the VHS franchise currently has, I believe, 7 entries in it, with this one being the most recent at the time of this video, and an 8th one planned for 2025. Like other anthologies, this contains several short stories, but each entry in this franchise seems to go for a different feel and theme overall. With this latest one having one of the following synopsises, which states, 6 blood-curdling tapes unleash horror in a sci-fi inspired hellscape, pushing the boundaries of fear and suspense. So, sci-fi inspired, which may or may not be your thing, but I thought it was a really fresh take on this franchise, which kind of helped it stand out against some of the other entries. Now, with previous installments, of which I think I've seen all of them at this point, there may have been one that I've missed. I definitely need to kind of look into them. And I know, like any other anthology, there will be points that usually kind of fall flat, or at least ones that just didn't quite work within that film or within that show, whatever that format is. That's part of the risk of trying to give a good mix, is that some entries may not sit that well. And these are usually, in the case of these VHS films, they are presented as like found VHS tapes with horror-related or horror-adjacent aspects to each one of those stories discovered. With this one, here are some of the here's like some info about those stories, what they kind of involve, and my overall thoughts, without spoiling, of course, what I thought of them. So first off, another quick synopsis that I came across, or a description for this entry in the VHS franchise would be: the film is presented with 5 segments built around a frame narrative in the form of a documentary with interviews from experts in the field of extraterrestrials and digital effects. So we go into, we go in and out of the stories throughout this with that documentary segment kind of setting everything up and tying everything together. So we get that little through line of that presentation overall, and then we get those individual segments within it, such as Stork, which is the first one, which plays kind of like you're watching a mix of like a handheld camera and a body cam footage from a police officer in what's apparently like a police investigation at this spooky old house. There are these almost zombie-like or rotten and taken over people kind of attacking them as they investigate and try to save anybody who they can, particularly a missing child that they've been looking for. It is very action-packed. It's like watching a first-person video game in a way for some of those segments. Story, action, then they investigate. There's a big reveal, then there's some more action, and so forth. It just keeps kind of going and going along the way. Along the lines of, until it kind of gets to the reveal of how this kind of connects with the extraterrestrial aspects and the sci-fi aspects of this entry in the franchise. Second up is Dream Girl. This is, I believe, the first segment for VHS that was shot in India, and it revolves around kind of like an idol singer or actress, like a Bollywood actress of sorts, and how the paparazzi are encroaching on her privacy and trying to get some great shots of her while she's shooting a music video or a segment for a film. But there's much more to this situation with her than we know, and things get very dark and violent, and no spoilers, but I didn't want to give any other detail except that I think this is probably my favorite segment within this film. Like I said, a lot of action, a lot of gore, interesting story, a lot of really great, just this really great color palette throughout it as well. Next up we have one called Live and Let Live. Now, this one was crazy. Starts off very cheesy, a bunch of people, kind of like a team of skydivers who are going for a jump for somebody's birthday celebration. But this addresses what would happen if you were on that trip doing, ready to do your jump, and it just so happened to coincide with an alien invasion. We get a lot of this GoPro style footage that's of what that invasion kind of entails. You know, what's happening in the sky, which is quite insane. Lots of stuff going on here. And what happens when you land in a situation like this one. You know, it keeps going and it gets brutally violent all the times, non-stop the entire way. Then we get to one called Fur Babies. Now, this one is perhaps the strangest and most twisted one, in my opinion, out of this entire anthology, involving a daycare and obedience training center for dogs, where an animal rights group is kind of investigating. They're going undercover, and there are discoveries made at this center which is kind of run out of a woman's house, which are extremely creepy. It is demeaning, it is gross, and it's written and directed by Christian and Justin Long. Justin Long, who you may remember as Mr. Class Act there in the film Barbarian. This one was definitely like kind of the creepiest, I would say. And then finally we have Stowaway, written by Mike Flanagan. You may have heard that name before from stuff such as A Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Club, Midnight Mass, Dr. Sleep. He's really been kind of like this master of horror, you know, over the past few years. Even one of his first films, Oculus, I rewatched recently and really enjoyed it. But this one is also directed by his wife, Kate Siegel. This one goes over the top with the sci-fi alien stuff, in that it involves an investigation into some strange happenings. You know, out in the middle of nowhere, strange lights in the sky, eyewitness accounts that somebody's kind of investigating. But as it comes up on like encountering of like an alien craft and really following up on this investigation, the horror side comes from just what that encounter does to our lead as a result of really getting in some trouble, you know, some trouble that they got themselves mixed up in. But touching on the through line, like I said, they have different portions as they're going from segment to segment. The documentary aspect to this, one story which really stuck out to me, were interviews with a digital effects artist as they investigate footage to either debunk or confirm what they're seeing on these VHS tapes. The roles of these artists are played by none other than the crew of Corridor Digital, who I know from the YouTube channel Corridor Crew, which has, you know, a few more subscribers for me. But I've seen their segments debunking things like this on their channel before, and they really use that experience to kind of play into this segment as they're pretty much playing themselves, investigating footage that people brought their way. It was a really cool way to work in a very large and relevant YouTube channel into this entry in the franchise. But Corridor, along with those documentary-style through line throughout this film, it really keeps things interesting. So when I would get through one story in that anthology, I would have their segment to kind of recover during, clean the palette in a way, and get ready for that next one. So it really helped the pace of this whole thing come together really well. And like I said, I think perhaps Dream Girl is probably my favorite. Fur Babies is the weirdest and most disturbing. Live and Let Live, the one with the skydivers, that's definitely, I would say, the most action-packed, and just it's like go, go, go the entire time. There's very little downtime in it. But the first one, The Stork, also has a lot of that as well. But your opinions would likely vary, as each one of these entries are worth being in this collection and are more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest quick little anthology entry here for VHS Beyond, which at the time of this video is available on Shudder. Finding info on this can be tricky because of the way it's spelled out, specifically VHS Beyond with those slashes in the title. When I was trying to check this in on Letterboxd, I was just looking for VHS and couldn't find it, but just remember it's spelled exactly the way that this logo is, so keep that in mind. Like I said, there are 7 of these films in total. Some of them I want to revisit and see if there's any that I just had never gotten around to before, but if you end up checking out this film and liking it, you've got 6 more to choose from, and another one coming next year. Anyways, that's all I've got for this quick one here. If you enjoyed what you see here, please give me a thumbs up, and if not already subscribed, consider subscribing and hitting that little bell icon to get notifications for when I put up new content, which is 1 to 3 times a week. Thanks again for coming by, and I will see you in the next one.